signed between the Nazi government in 1933 and the Zionist movement. And this agreement in 1933 was for the Nazi government in 1933 to transport 50,000 German Jewish people to Palestine. Now this is a convergence of interests. What would, if we take the basic meaning, the definition that we are given of anti-Semitism, that anti-Semitism equals anti-Jewish. You are anti-Jewish people. Let's take that as the definition, even though that is not an adequate or correct definition of the phrase. Let's just assume it is. What would somebody who doesn't like Jewish people think? They would think that Jewish people cannot exist as an integrated entity with the rest of the world. They would think that Jewish people have to exist as a separate entity. Or maybe not exist. But that if they do exist, it would be as a separate entity detached from everybody else in the world. That people can't live together as human beings. There you have the state of Israel. There you have Zionism. But let's actually talk about what a Semite is. What is a Semite? The word is from the Semitic languages. Yes, one of the Semitic languages is of course Hebrew, but one of the Semitic languages is also Arabic. So therefore the people that speak Arabic are Semites. Hold on, does that mean the Palestinian people are Semites? Does that mean the Arabs of Iraq are Semites? Zionism and the state of Israel has ethnically cleansed the Semites of the Middle East. In order for the Zionist movement to be fully realized, because up until 1948 the land was called the British Mandate of Palestine. So therefore Zionism as an ideology which has the final aim of Zionism, the final solution of Zionism can be no clearer than the refugees and the Palestinian refugees. We have between 5 to 6 million, by some estimates, Palestinian refugees worldwide. That's Zionism. That's Zionism. Those people have been forced off their land for no reason other than they are indigenous. And there's something in Israeli law called the grandfather clause. Now this is really interesting. In Israeli law, if you, I, or any other human being in this room has one grandparent that is Jewish, you don't have to be Jewish yourself. And you can be from any country in the world. If you have one grandparent that is Jewish, you are entitled to Israeli citizenship. You can go and live in Jerusalem tomorrow. But the indigenous people of Jerusalem, whose parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-great-great-great-grandparents have lived in there forever, have no citizenship and no country, and are non-people. This is Zionism. Now, that is wrong. Whatever words you attach to a situation, whatever words you attach to yourself, to divide us as human beings, from the perspective of human understanding, that is wrong. There's something wrong with that situation. That's not normal. That's abnormal. That's wrong. So, that's really my position on that. On Zionism. I don't accept it as an ideology. It's a supremacist ideology. It is one with imperialism. It is one with racism. And when realized, it amounts to ethnic cleansing. And that is a problem for all of us. Especially since the British government are seen as the fathers of that situation. So, it's not just Mr. Hosni Mubarak, who is the prison guard of US and Israeli interests. Let's look across to Yemen, where you have a dictator that's been in power for 30 years, and the will of the people is being shown. They do not want the same man in charge, a man who allows the US military to bomb his own country. They don't want that man in charge. When finally people are beginning to realize, how come US allies in this region are not the liberal Democrats that we thought the US supported? They're not the Democrats we thought the US supported. No, they're the dictators. They're the dictators. And let it finally be said and realized that US military dominance of the region and Israel's expansion within the region, because it's not just Palestine that Israel has occupied. Israel has invaded and occupied every single country it borders with, from Syria to Lebanon to Jordan to Egypt. Let it be said from now that US and Israeli interests in the quote-unquote Middle East and the Arab world are dependent and reliant upon those countries being ruled by dictatorships that suppress the will of the people. If you had true or a real reflection of the will of the people, real quote-unquote democracy in the Middle East, it would not deliver one pro-American or pro-Israeli government. There would not be one US military base left standing. There would not be one government that was willing to go sit and shake hands with Mr. Netanyahu. So it's important for us to realize the situation in Egypt now. They are attempting to co-opt it and keep Mr. Soleiman in power, who is of the regime. He is from the regime. He is the head torturer that has tortured the Egyptian people with US training and US weapons for 30 years. Where is the change? It's just the maintaining of the status quo, but they are hoping a more acceptable face on the same status quo. And this is what people are revolting against. This is what people are making abundantly clear they do not want. But it's also important to understand for us and myself as somebody who is quote-unquote a hip-hop artist. How did I become a hip-hop artist? Well, imperialism, raw military, real imperialism is always accompanied by cultural imperialism. And cultural imperialism is the reason that you have people walking down the streets of London, of Copenhagen, of Johannesburg with the letters NY on their hats. That's cultural imperialism. What causes us to admire? We're not wearing Baghdad on our hats. It's laughable to even suggest it, but why? And the question is why? And don't ever get it confused. I'm not directly criticizing any of you, because I am exactly the same. Why did I even start rapping in the first place? Look at people that started rapping in this country. We started rapping in this country in American accents. Why? Why did we start rapping in American accents? Why was that the way we chose to voice these things? We started rapping in American accents because it is imitation and the emulating of the better, the more human, the cooler, the more attractive. As if there's more attractive and less attractive human beings. There will never be another you in the world. You are the only you that was ever created. You're 1,000,000% unique. That's the best gift in the world. The unique nature of you. That's what you were born to be. We were not born to be like anyone else. And so this is, when I look at it, imperialism is the reason for almost everything around us. The reason why people here started rapping and started rapping in American accents and wear certain clothes. Why? Well, if one country in the world has over 1,000 military bases worldwide, when I started rapping as a 12-year-old boy, I started rapping with an American accent. And that's really funny. But it's the truth. Why? Why was that? Why did I do that? If we have a country in the world that has 1,000 military bases worldwide, do you think that has no